What's up, everybody? Steven here with Neural DSP for another Q&A. How is everybody doing? Ray Mitchell, Jason Chambers, Kiki Riki Man, Koski, what's up, everybody? Let's see. So I am here to answer any and all questions that you possibly have regarding mixing, the plugins, life, the universe, and everything. So bring it on. Let me know what you guys are curious about. Go ahead and type it into the questionnaire, into the chat with that, and I will know what to look for. Let's see. So Ray Mitchell asks, I'd like to know if you would ever consider adding MIDI control to the Nameless and NTS plugs. I know that that is something that they are working on currently. I'm not sure exactly when that's supposed to be dropping, but that is going to be an update because I too would love to use a MIDI controller. I think that would be really, really cool. I'm actually going to be working on how to use the plugins live. I'll be working on an instructional video on that pretty soon. And then once they make the update, then I'll do the MIDI controls as well. So, Carol, what's up, my dude? How you doing, man? Let's see. Mr. Hard Rocker, what's up? Michael D8393, hey, how's it going? Let's see. Zach, my dude, aloha. Let's see. Let's see. Alex Kala asks, I vaguely remember additional presets, settings, etc. being mentioned for the hyperluminal Darkglass suite. Any tentative plans here regarding features or timeline? I'm not sure about a timeline, but I do know that they are working on the updates currently. Let's see. Any plans for Marshall style Sims 800 Plexi or JTM 45? I'm not that I'm aware of at the moment. We have a bunch of plugins planned, but I don't think that they have those specific ones, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, I do want to say at the outset that I did get a bunch of questions regarding the kind of more technical stuff that I wasn't able to answer last week. So I spoke to the owners at Neural, and we are going to have Doug on some live streams. So he'll be able to answer the much more technical questions that I'm not quite aware of. Let's see. Alex says, wish we could upvote comments in here. Nice call, Heath. You know, at some point, we'll probably have somebody additional moderating the comments, and that way they could just feed me them as they come. But as for right now, what you could do is just put bracket, capital Q bracket, so that way I can see the questions a little bit easier in the chat. That would be awesome. Let's see. Any chance of a delay feature being added? Would be fun to play around with. And that's asked by Kizo. Let's see. Did you say something earlier? I mean, I think that, you know, I did a video about mixing and matching different components of like the archetype Plini plugin. So like you could turn everything off except for the delay feature in that and add it onto the end of Fortin Nameless or the NTS, and that's pretty dope. David Suzuki asks, what interface and monitors do you recommend? That's a pretty good question. I think people tend to overthink this a little bit more, and it also depends on what you are going for. So like the monitors I have currently are the JBL LSR 308s, as well as the LSR 310, which is the 10-inch subwoofer. Thanks, Emmanuel. Appreciate that. So, and then as far as like interface is concerned, like I started off with the Scarlett. It was the Focusrite 6i6, which to me was a little bit more than I absolutely needed at the time being. But you know, I knew that I wanted to have a little bit of versatility and flexibility in what I was trying to accomplish. Eventually, I moved up to the Scarlett 18i20, which has been pretty decent. I know I have to upgrade it at some point because I have some more heavy recording sessions that I'm probably going to try and do in here. But so far, like, you can find pretty decent interfaces and monitors for not a whole lot of money. Like the 308s that I have are pretty good quality consumer level monitors. I think I got the monitors and the sub for around 900, maybe 950, I think. So it wasn't a ton of money, and I've been using them for the last 3 years, give or take. But they've been pretty good so far. Let's see. Benrathung Shatiri asks, is there a way to switch channels to archetype Plini plugin? So I mentioned this earlier before, the teams are working on integrating MIDI controls into the plugin, so that way you can have the ability to switch between the channels. Yes. As far as like a workaround to that is automating. Like I know Ola England did a video on like automation and using I think it was the Nameless Live, and then just automating his settings to change with the songs, because he does a lot of like a lot of live performances in one-on-ones and stuff like that, where he's playing by himself. He needs all the backing tracks, and then we'll have the automation change out as needed. So that's one way to work around that in the time being. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Hard Rocker. Okay, my view is though the heavy hardcore stuff is covered. Nameless NTS. The prog is 2. Plini. The prog is 2. Okay, so I was reading that correctly. The prog is 2. So classic hard rock 80s British tones would be really wanted for many, I'd think. I wouldn't disagree. I think that that's something that, you know, they'll get to eventually. You know, like Neural has been working hard to really create some amazing plugins for everybody, and I know that they hit the metal and prog scene really hard. Like I think that that's probably something that they want to eventually do, but I know that they have a lot of really cool stuff planned right now. But I'm sure that you won't be disappointed in some of the future plugins. So let's move on. Modern Vintage says, hey Steve, I'm using Barefoot MM26 monitors. I can't express how close the plugins not only sound but feel, particularly my Meshuggah amp and Nameless plugin. With these monitors, I prefer it to a cab. I've actually been looking at the Barefoot monitors. I really, I'm curious as to how they will do in this room. Like I'm I'm looking forward to trying them out for sure. Patronus Studios, how do Neural? I don't know, man. How do Neural? Bo Burchell Neural Sim. Oh yeah. That would be really dope if Bo Burchell teamed up with Neural. Just a suggestion. Don't know if anybody in particular could make this happen. But I think that would be really, really awesome. If you guys don't know, Bo Burchell is part of Seosin and is an amazing engineer. Let's see. All right, Zach Manzano has a question. Aloha, dude. He's from Hawaii, if you hadn't noticed. Have you ever used both the Parallax and the Darkglass in the same chain? I assume to disable the cab sim if the Parallax was at the end of the chain. Interesting. I guess it really would depend on what your outcome would be. I've never used the Parallax and the Darkglass in the same chain, and I guess I wouldn't necessarily do that. I guess it wouldn't be like something that I would think of doing, I suppose, because I see them as two separate entities. But again, I guess it just depends. Like you could potentially put some cool, you know, kind of overdrive, like saturation feel at the end of the Parallax. I might have to try that out now. Okay, awesome. I appreciate that. Let's see, Sirith Ungol Studios. Says, I have the real EVH 5153 50 watt. Do you guys have a plan to do something like that in the plugin version? I would use a plugin, less work, and fastest workflow. I 100% agree. I think that there's probably some models that are going to be close to the 5150, but you know, I don't think that they're working specifically on a 5150 at the moment. But you know, again, so like I mentioned earlier in the stream that we'll be having Doug on, and that's definitely a question that you'll want to have for Doug because he's the owner, and he's the he and Francisco are like, you know, the brains behind it. So it's their vision, and they're going to take the company in pretty cool places. I'm really looking forward to the plugins that are coming out very soon. David Suzuki, which of the Neural DSP plugs would be closest to a John Petrucci tone? That's a good question. I would think. I'm not 100% certain. I think probably the NTS, or maybe you can get some tones out of the Plini. I don't know. I've been really in love with the NTS recently. It's really fit my play style a lot. And I dig the versatility of it. Jason Chambers, I dream about the XFX 3 and often wonder if the Fortin Nameless plugin running in Logic Pro is an alternative. Definitely. I mean, I don't know. Like I've been using the Neural plugins so much more, so much more than anything else. Like, and it's not even just that I work for them now. Like their product is so close to the real thing that I have a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier sitting right next to me, but I never use it. I don't feel like I have to. Like the versatility and speed and the workflow of the Neural plugins just makes that almost obsolete. Like maybe if somebody required me to do some like reamping for a project or something like that, or maybe in the future I might do some comparison vids, it could work. But otherwise, you know, Neural for life. I'll just go with them. Let's see. Modern Vintage says, Steve, MM26 for that room, the 12s, because more issues with bass in a smaller room. Yeah, no, that would be, that would make a lot of sense, because this isn't a massive room. This is actually a lot bigger than the previous room that I was in, but you know, I really like this space. But the Barefoots have definitely caught my interest. Blake Dennis, will the MIDI controller ability updates apply for all plugins? Will they work in standalone application, and will it allow you to simply right-click MIDI learn and then hit a button to your pedal? Okay, so I may be wrong about this, but I think that they have to update each plugin individually just because they have to code it into each individual plugin. So I don't think it's going to be all at once. But they will be working on that for all the plugins, because I think that's an application that is needed, and they're well aware that it's something people want. So I know that they're working hard on it. Will they work in the standalone application? Absolutely. And will it allow you to simply MIDI learn? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's 100%. Any future plans to offer the Parallax multiband on the Ultra? That's an interesting question. I don't think so. Only because that would be like an entirely new plugin, because they had to build the Parallax from the ground up to fit exactly their specifications on what it was supposed to be. In Ultra, you know, the Darkglass is its own thing, like, and it's awesome, and I love it. But there's a reason why people have to take the Darkglass track and then split it into 2 to 3 different tracks. And basically what they're doing with the Parallax is just allowing you the ability to do that with a singular plugin. So I don't think that they're going to update the Ultra with those features. WP asks, do you have another metal guitar amp in pipeline? Yes. Can't talk about it, but yes. David Schultz, I have someone sending me a bunch of guitar stems. If I want to add cab sim but not use the amp pedal functionality of Nameless, just the cab sim, do you recommend that? Absolutely. Absolutely, David. Yeah. Basically all you would do is the icons at the very top of the, oh, you know what? I could just show you. Let's see. So Give it a second. So say these were already amped tracks or something or other. Basically, if you wanted to use the impulse response section just by itself, just right click the icons at the top and then dial in your impulse responses as needed. That's it. Like, I mean, with that logic, you could even use your neural plugins as impulse response loaders now that I think about it, which is pretty cool. Hadn't thought about that. All right. So yeah, let's go and turn those back on. Okay. Modern Vintage says, seriously, it seems best to invest in great monitors and stick with your plugins versus amps in combination with an aux, wah, etc., as it adds color, feel loss. Any experience with this? Plugin versus amps in combination with aux. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the consistency of the plugins is really great, and I think that having like really good high-end monitors is also like awesome. I don't think it's. I think calling back to a previous question, it's all dependent on what you want to get out of it. Like me in a professional sense, it's like because I've been doing so much more mixing, and work on my monitors. Like I know I need to upgrade it. A year, 2 years ago, these monitors were more than enough that I could handle because I was using them simply to learn on. And like, they work pretty well. Like I said, I think that the quality of them is really nice. But yeah, having those, great monitors is 100% necessary right now for me personally. Let's see. Zach asks, I accidentally came across an article using true bypass guitar pedals before hitting the DI. Apparently it buffers the signal. I haven't noticed anything in the transients, but maybe I'm wrong. So this is one of those questions where people kind of get divided on it, because when you send your signal through a physical component, there is something that does happen to the signal. Now the question is whether you can actually hear the difference or not. And to me, I don't think so. I'm very much an 80-20 sort of person, where if it's not readily apparent that it's changing something or adding or taking away, like I'm not going to really worry about it too much. I mean, it's always good to be discerning about these things and do the tests and go in with a very unbiased ear to it. But yeah, I don't particularly see the benefit. I mean, like I have several pedals that I like, that I've used in live settings. I have like the Horizon Precision Drive pedal, but I don't think that if I was to use that before my DI, I would be using it to saturate the signal. I wouldn't use it just for a physical input, and then just run it clean, because I don't think that it's doing enough in that sense to warrant it. But that's my take, and I could be wrong. A lot of this stuff is subjective. A lot of this stuff is kind of difficult to determine if you're not working with an audio very, very consistently. Sometimes it's very difficult to hear these really, really minute changes. So that's my take on it. Let's see. Yeah, anytime, Blake. Let's see. Any additional noise gate before plugs? Carol. So Carol is asking, any additional noise gate before plugs? I don't particularly, and I think part of it has to do with my situation, because I mean, like the plugins have great noise gates. I really like the noise gates they have on it. Even the Zuul, I think is a pretty awesome noise gate. If you are in a situation where the electricity, or you're getting like a lot of like radio frequency interference in your plugins, or your pickups, then you might have to put an additional noise gate. but I don't personally have to because it's not like my situation doesn't call for it. I mentioned on the last live stream that I was recording an album like 3 or 4 years ago, and I did it in my apartment at the time, and it was a really old building, and I had to like I bought a power conditioner, and I had this pervasive sound that even when I was playing was really apparent through the amplifier and the sound. Like I could play a full like note and chugging on the low strings, and you could still hear this hum, like, and it was like super annoying. I ended up having to re-record all of that in a separate location because it was just so bad. So yeah, so that could be part of the problem, is your surroundings. Let's see. I wonder what the okay. So Jason Chambers asks, I wonder what the experience is like tracking with Neural DSP plugins for guitar. Any latency issues? If you have like, I haven't really had much problems with latency. I do also have like a really nice computer. Even my laptop, I have an Alienware laptop with I believe it's an i7 CPU. So I don't particularly have any latency problems with that, but I think it really just depends on the rig that you're running on. But it's always going to be dependent on your particular setup. Yeah, I don't particularly have much problems with latency. Even like I can get my buffer down to like 128, and it's pretty good. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna glasses on so I can read this name. M. Juzikanez. Sorry, I'm just gonna butcher that shamelessly. Asks the question, do you think the quality of the cables, guitar cables, makes any difference in the quality of the plugin and the sound coming out? Yes. Yes, I do. I do plan on collaborating with a couple of people and making a video illustrating why, like, because kind of going back to one of the previous questions, is that it's like, how much of a difference do these things make? And what I want to try doing is being like separate cables to show what the actual noise difference is between them and what sort of cost effectiveness is. Like when do you start getting that diminishing returns on investment? Because like, can you go as low as buying like a $15 cable, and does that sound good? Can you go upwards of $100, and is that going to make any difference if you bump it up to $200? Like so these are questions that I want to kind of answer, because I think that it's important, because ultimately the quality of the sound you get is the quality of the source. And if you have a weak link in the chain of recording your signal, it's not going to sound good. You're going to have that additional noise floor. It's like you do have, again, you're going to have a better tone on a 10-foot cable than you are a 20-foot cable, but what about quality of the 20-foot cable if you're using gold conductors versus, et cetera, et cetera. So I really want to kind of get into the minutia, the nitty-gritty of that subject, because I'm kind of nerdy like that. I like the details. So I kind of want to parse that out, even just for myself, and then just kind of share the results for you guys. So I think that would be a really cool thing to do. Let's see. Rithwik Sathian asks, do you have any more artist tone plugins in the same fashion as Plini archetype? Yes. That's all I can say. Any plans to add Fortin Fuzz to plugins? I am not sure. I think that would be really cool. But I guess that that's a question to put to Doug when he comes in on the stream. So David Boscherel? I'm sorry. I'm going to butcher so many names on these streams. David asks, do you plan on making a mixing course for newbies using Neural DSP plugins? For instance, mixing a metal song with 2 guitars, 1 bass, and get us through the process of getting the best out of it. I think that's a really good idea. and that's something that I've been kind of toying with. You know, I would want to see what the demand of that is, because I feel like I think that me personally, I'm still kind of trying to find the audience. Like, is it a lot of DIY guitarists who just want a good sounding plugin? Is the audience composed of like people who want to learn mixing and mastering? You know, are there engineers who just want to get like good tones out of it? You know, so like I think that is something I want to test out on the channel. That's kind of where I've been going with some of these more basic, you know, quad tracking versus, you know, dual tracking. And, you know, I want to do a video on the strengths and weaknesses of like panning guitars different, you know, to different ratios and stuff like that. I think that would be a really, really good thing. And that's something I've been kind of plotting out. Let's see. Rithwik Sathian asks, what's the difference between the built-in noise gate and the Zuul pedal gate? The Zuul pedal gate is based off of the Zuul pedal, and the noise gate is their own algorithm. It's just I think it's just a different matter of thresholds, and yeah, it's just going to be a little bit different algorithm between the two. See, Metal Covers from Hell asks, any plans to fix problem with connecting plugins parameters in Cubase? In the situation of linking, for example, 4 instances of NTS selection of mics doesn't work. That would be something to talk to support at neuraldsp.com. So I think that talk with them and find out if perhaps it's an instance with Cubase that's problematic, or if they can help you with that first. Good question, though. I you know, we definitely want to make sure that everybody's taken care of, and that any problems are taken care of immediately. Okay. Paul Smith says, "Hello, everybody." Hey, Paul. How you doing? Okay. So Jason Chambers says it'd be cool to see the tracking as well as the mixing lesson. Okay. I could definitely do that. I think that would be a really good, lesson to be had. Okay. Let's see. Might pass on that. Paul Smith asks, can you change the color of the lights in the room to orange to match my mood? I can, but then it messes up my white balance on my camera. So I'll just leave it the way it is. Otherwise, I turn into a ghostly white individual. So yeah. Let's see. To expand on the question about the difference between the gates, when would you recommend using one over the other? And this was asked by Rithwik Sathian again. I think it's just a matter of using your ears to test the difference between the two. I mean, really, like, so here's what I would do. It depends on what style you're playing, but here's what I would do: is I would record a section of either syncopated or, you know, some sort of rhythmic idea that needs a lot of space between the notes. So just record that, something kind of like, if you're going with like something genty, it could be like da 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 da. So you have those spaces in between, and then just play with the thresholds of either noise gate to see which one fits the style better. Like, so that's what I would do. Is just kind of take it as like an experiment, and then just record a simple section, something that's typical of what you play normally, and then just try it out for both and see what works the best. Because you might find that one gate works better than the other on particular sections as well, but it's something to try out, honestly. Russell X, the cab section of the Nameless was made with the dude of ML Sound Lab. Yes, ML Sound Lab makes the impulse responses. Yes. Zach asks, can you request a Groupon for the Little Labs Red IDI box? That thing does not agree with my bank account. I know. I know that like honestly the first DI box I got was the Radial, and that one was $99. And to be honest, that one is more than enough. The only problem with going through Radial DI box is it is not a reamp box. Like I got the Little Labs Red Eye because it is a DI and a reamp box, because then I have the same, like I have both packages in one box. So I ended up actually spending more money by going with the Radial DI box and then the reamp, because I bought the DI box and did my recordings, and then I wanted to reamp them later on, which it was kind of a mess. So I've ended up actually losing out on money because I now have way more DI boxes and reamp boxes than I need. I just need the one now. That's cool. Let's see. Ben Ruthung asks, how long is the estimated time for the weight of MIDI to be added? I honestly don't have a timeline. I'm assured that this is something they are working on, but I personally don't know. And this is going to be a question that I'll put in and have and make sure that Doug addresses when he does the stream. And honestly, he may not even know either. I know that they're working hard on it, and they could not have a timeline. I don't know, unfortunately. I wish I did. Let's see. Gaudian M. Which plugin would you use for black metal, full chords, high gain? I like the idea of cable video. Oh, yeah. So if I was going to go with black metal, I would definitely go with the NTS. Like that one, I think tends to have that sort of tone that people are looking for. I mean, it's based off of the was it the Fortin Nameless Ola Englands. So I think that would probably do really well for the black metal. Personally, that's my opinion. Let's see. Carol asks, any reverb plug after Cab Sim to add room mics effect? So Carol, I am actually going to be working on a video fairly soon on how to get more room mics effect. You can use a reverb plugin, but I would definitely be careful as to how much reverb you use, because generally I find that you need far less than you think. But it would definitely be something to kind of approach with caution when you try it. But yeah, so like you could definitely use some reverb. I would say like dial the mix back considerably to make sure that it doesn't get like too washy. Let's see. So Jason Chambers asks, Ola England goes in with an apogee. What do you think compared to the Scarlett 2i4? Again, I think that this is dependent on what you are going for. I know the apogee is a really good interface, but the Scarlett 2i4 is also pretty good. Like if you are looking to just have something that does AD conversion, like the 2i4 is going to be more than enough for you. Like if you're looking to just record some guitars, because as far as I know, the apogee preamp is not going to be as like worlds better than the Scarlett 2i4. Like if you're, I think that it's going to be like, apples to apples in comparison. Apogee might have some slight benefit, but again, it depends on how much you can afford, and it depends on your ultimate purpose. So like, I think the apogee would be great, but so is the Scarlett. So if it's a budgetary constraint, then the 2i4 probably. I'm actually not sure what the apogee goes for, but I imagine that it's probably a little bit more. Zach Manzano asks, could you clarify your audio buffer settings for mixing and recording? Low buffer for recording, higher for mixing. Exactly. So let me pull this up. Yeah, so when I'm mixing, I have my buffer size set to the maximum. It's 1024. That makes it a lot less CPU intensive. And then when I'm recording, I bring it down to about 128, Because the thing is, when you start getting to far lower buffer sizes, your audio can start to kind of mess up. It starts getting little poppy and clicky and stuff like that. So 128 is generally a small enough latency that it doesn't bother me when I'm playing, and that seems to be kind of like the magic area. You could even go to 256 depending on what you're doing, but 128 is about where I need it, especially for like lead playing or anything that's a little bit faster. So that's generally what I have it. So larger number mixing, smaller number recording, because you want to get rid of the latency. So that is generally speaking the way I do it. All right. Ray Mitchell asks, any chance Neural would make their own VST host? It would be killer to have a dedicated host for Neural plugins to be able to switch between them via MIDI foot controller. That's a good question. I don't know if that's in the works, to be honest. And what I'm going to be doing is going through the chat after this stream is done, and I'm going to be notating all the questions that I couldn't answer, and I'll be putting them in a spreadsheet, so that way if Doug can answer them, he'll address them during his stream. All right. Okay, so Mohammed Taifi, your plugin is spectacular, but I would like to know how you would mix the sound from Fortin. What are the basics regarding Fortin Nameless? Okay, well, let's get into that, shall we? It's going to take a second. Let's see. Okay, so let's take this guitar section. So this was from the previous video I made. Let's go ahead and put in Fortin Nameless Suite. Now these are linked, so anything that I do to one will happen to the other. So I'm only going to have one plugin open at any given time. But let's go ahead and just take a listen and see what we can pick up. So usually I do this oversampling to high. I usually back off the output just. Uh-oh, what's happening? Oh, bugger. Something seems to be wrong with my setup. Ah, dang it. Deactivate, activate. Okay, that's back. Okay, camera froze for a little bit, but I'm back. Let me save this. My my streaming setup is it's fragile to say the least with Pro Tools. You know, I got it running for the most part, but occasionally it will crash. So I'm just going to go ahead and restart my session, and then I'll come back to your question, Mohammed. Let's see. Using Darkglass Ultra Parallax Live, yay or nay? Yay. That is asked by Kirill Konyev. I would absolutely use them live. And again, I'm going to work on a video on showing you guys how to do that live, because I think that would be a really great asset. Mohammed, it's not already mixed. There are certain things that I do to make sure that it fits in my mix. So I'll go over that in a few minutes. Let's see. Rakshan Palinda asks, how do I tackle the Neural plugins taking my CPU for a spin? My CPU usage seems to max out only when I use the Neural plugins such as Parallax, etc. Check your buffer size, of course, because the buffer is definitely going to, you know, if it's at its max and you're still having problems with your CPU, you may have to contact support and see if they can't help you with that. But I would definitely take a look at the buffer size first. This is frozen. Sweet. Sorry, guys. Pro Tools, close program. Okay. Mark Studios says, I would kill for a master suite where we could mix and match components of all the different Neural DSP plugins we own. I would agree with you. I think that's actually a pretty cool. I mean, because like Sound Toys does that, where they have the rack, so you can just add all their plugins to a single instance. I think that would be really cool. I don't know if that's in the works, but I think that would be a great addition. Doomrot says, hello, man. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Let's see. Ray Mitchell asks, okay, off-topic question. Which software do you use for live streaming on YouTube? Also, which camera, gear, etc.? Okay, so Ray, this isn't off-topic. I really want you guys to feel free to ask me anything, really. I think that this is going to be like kind of an open forum for us to kind of get to know each other. And, you know, I do encourage you guys to ask me questions on whatever you think, you know, whatever you want to know. I'm pretty much an open book when it comes to the things that I've learned and the things that I use, you know, because I think that at the end of the day, I want to help you guys become better at what you guys want to do. So when it comes to, to your question, I use OBS, which is Open Broadcast Software, I think it's called. It's free. I use only free plugins for my streaming right now. And the reason why, and okay, so that's still working. Great. Selected device could not be initialized. Well, Mohammed, I am so sorry. It looks like I'm going to have to... oh, no. Oh, no. Is that not functioning anymore? Okay, so this is the problem with some of these things, is that one of my plugins is not functioning as the sound card for my streaming, and that's why Pro Tools wasn't working. So, and that's going to have to, yeah, so that'll require a hard restart, unfortunately. But we're almost at the end of this, so I'll leave the mixing to next week's stream. I think we got a lot of good questions right now. Aaron Anderson, you got the good eye. It's OBS Studio for video, Voicemeeter for audio mixing. Yes, absolutely. I route my Pro Tools session through Voicemeeter and then have that going to my OBS. It was a bit of a pain to set up, and I'm still looking for some better, some alternative methods of streaming, if I can find any. But for the moment, it functions okay. Let's see. And then, so I just bought the Logitech Brio webcam, which it shoots in 4K, so that's what I'm doing for a video. Okay, cool. See, Modern Vintage says he owns a Kemper and Axe-FX 3 with the same profiles, presets, and plugins from STL. Even the STL team says plugins are the best route. And ours destroy theirs in every way. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the kind words, man. Seems plugin technology is the way to go across the board. Agreed, and that's from Modern Vintage again. I mean, I agree. Honestly, I think that there are a lot of good things to be had with hardware, because when you're talking about the physics of sending a signal through actual physical hardware, there are things done to it that are not done in the box. However, with that being said, I think that the emulations are getting so much more to a point that is becoming harder and harder to tell the difference. And at the end of the day, what matters is the song and if it connects with people. Ultimately, you know, I said last week that these tools and these techniques should be used in service of the song, because if I have, you know, a Shadow Hills compressor and, you know, some Manly Massive EQs on my mix, and it sounds like garbage, then it doesn't matter what I used. You know, like at the end of the day, it's more about the techniques and the skill set of the engineer making the music and the musicians playing it and the vibe and the feel. So if you can get all of that from plugins, then I would 100% agree. So far, everything that I've used on the channel, I've written, mixed, and mastered myself, and I do everything in the box. You know, and I think that it just works so much better for my own workflow that, you know, I'll probably just continue using plugins unless there's an added bonus or a need or a want to have something physical. That's generally how I feel. All right. Okay, Rukshan Palinda asks, I'm looking to buy only one bass plugin. I tried both the Darkglass and the Parallax, but I cannot decide because they sound very similar. Right. Okay, he continues, is there any main difference between the two plugins in achieving the tones we want? I probably would recommend the Parallax. Personally, I like it a little bit better than the Darkglass, and that's not to say anything bad about the Darkglass. I think that the Darkglass is an awesome plugin, and I think that it recreates the sound super well. But as far as like your consistent low end and the flexibility of tones you can get, the Parallax is definitely is what I would go with, 100%. Let's see. Would you recommend any chorus plugin to work with Nameless? And that's asked by Russell X. Let's see. You know, to be very honest, I don't really ever use chorus on my guitars. Like generally, like, I mean, I work a lot in metal, rock and metal, so I don't use chorus plugins too terribly often. So I don't think I could recommend one off the top of my head. Sorry about that. Let's see. Zach Manzano asks, do you prefer mostly tracking live within the amp sim, or do you add in the Neural plugin later after capturing the DI? That's a good question, Zach, and I would definitely say I track with the amp sim on. And the reason I do that is because my playing style changes so drastically when playing acoustic and playing plugged in. And this is why I recommend, like, I taught guitar for like about 10 years at a shop in Sacramento, California. And I always recommended to my electric guitar students, like, practice as much as you possibly can through an amp. And the only reason being is that your hand and your ear will adjust to what you're listening to. So like, I noticed that when I am playing acoustically, my right hand actually moves up the strings more, so I palm mute more. But that actually kills the tone a little bit more. And generally speaking, like I find that I've had to correct my hand back about almost a quarter of an inch to make sure that I'm not cutting off too much tone with my palm mutes. So that's kind of the difference between the playing through an amp or playing through the sim and playing acoustically. Not only that, but also you're going to notice where you mess up a lot more than when you don't. Let's see. Let's see. So Modern Vintage says, also, Ola recorded his album with NTS. He said it's identical in every way, so not worth integrating problems when miking cabs. 100% right. The NTS is actually Ola's amp. Like, I don't know if you know, like, he sent that to Neural, and they modeled it after his amp, which is really awesome. It's cool that you know that you can get Ola's tone immediately, and that it was okay with him, because Ola is very, very, very particular with his tone. So yeah, it's great when you can know that you have that sort of quality, like, just at your fingertips at all time. Kim Senior B asks, is there any reason you can't do the amp modeling on the same level the Axe-Fx does? All amps sound great at 12 o'clock, but with soft amp sims, it's always a flubby mess. Is there any reason you can't do? I don't quite know what you're asking, my friend. Um, Maybe at the level or the volume level. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. So I'm gonna kind of move along, and if you could clarify the question, I'd appreciate it. Doomrot. I really dream of ever becoming a sound engineer who will be needed by someone. I'm doing everything cool, but so far this has not reached many people. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, continuing to put out content and providing value and something entertaining for people to enjoy, and it's not going to happen immediately. Like that's the thing that I find a lot of people don't understand, is that your momentum is going to drag at first. um and I've been through this. About 2 years ago, I lost my full-time job in Sacramento and decided to go the audio engineer route, and it took me a while to get to a point where I was until it was economically feasible. But that's a story for another day. But just to say that, you know, continue creating your art, continue creating your music, enjoy the process, because that's the necessity. If you are enjoying it, people will enjoy it with you, and continue putting it out and make things that people want to see. I think that's very important. Make things that people want to see. Um, yeah, and just keep putting it out, and be patient with your growth. You know, um, at a certain point, things will start to snowball if you do well, if you continue putting out good stuff. And then just, educate yourself and continue, like, make sure that your next project is always going to be better than its last. Continue, make sure that you are learning the right things to make what you're doing better. Let's see. Okay. Okay, Ben Rithung asks, would a tweaking be necessary to Simon's preset, or it's already been tweaked to the finest tone and it's ready to record just with the settings? Okay, so presets are a thing that I've always had a love-hate relationship with, because I think that at the end of the day, you have to you have to be able to discern the tone for yourself. Like, what was this engineer, what was this musician, bass player, guitar player going for with this tone? Because I find that more often than not, what people do is they have like their like I have my Legator, or I have I have the comparison bass in for the next like week or two, and um, what happens is people will just grab their instrument, pull up a preset, and then wonder why it doesn't sound good. And I kind of addressed this in a previous video, when I was doing the dial-in Fortin Nameless tone. Tones set by somebody are done with specific equipment, like it's their guitar. So like a Kiesel with active pickups is going to sound completely different than a Fender Squier with passive pickups, right? Like those are very like extreme examples, but like that's kind of the idea, is that you have to understand the motivation behind the way they set it up. Like, do they go with some really hot overdrive into the amplifier first so they could do like a good lead? Did they saturate the master volume control so that way they get a lot more mid-range out of the tone stack? I think kind of taking these presets and reverse engineering them is what you really, really want to do, is that so that you can kind of achieve a better tone. Because every preset that I've pulled up, I've had to tweak just slightly, because it's like I don't have a Dingwall bass, right? So like a lot of the people who are, like a lot of people, does Nolly play a Dingwall? I think Nolly plays a Dingwall. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's like if I have a Fender P bass and Nolly has a Dingwall, those two are not going to be the same. So I can take those settings and then I can just adjust them to match what I want them to be. If that answers your question, is that, like you have to understand that their equipment is probably going to be different than yours. So a little bit of tweaking is definitely going to be required. So, but I think that that's kind of cool though, because you get to understand motivations of people who are doing this for a living. and people who are very experienced in doing tones. Like, I put up all of my presets for everybody to download, and those are usually in the links in all the videos. But I want people to kind of play around with them and figure out generally what the idea was behind the preset first. Like, that's usually what I try to do when I pull up presets. Okay, that was a long-winded answer. I apologize. All right. Let's see. Oh, that's a good question. Tyler Britton asks, would you guys incorporate the option to change out tube types in future guitar amp releases? I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know if that's going to be a feature, but I'm going to pass this along to Doug for when he does his live stream. Rushkin asks, would you guys ever consider making presets for the Axe effects or profiles for the Kemper based on Neural's current products? That's a good question. I don't think that that's in the works right now. I think that Neural they're really focusing on creating their own brand rather than attaching themselves to other people. So like they are, they're making their own plugins and stuff like that. That could be a possibility for the future, but I think it's unlikely at the moment. But yeah, that's a question for Doug, definitely. Aaron, not a problem. It was my pleasure. Doomrot, also my pleasure, man. Yes, I am a member of the URM Academy. Stefan Aronson asks, do I play cello? Yes, I do. That is my cello in the back over there. I'm not good at it. I'm middle of the road at best, but I try to do good stuff. Cool. So that is 2 o'clock. And if there are no additional questions, I'll go ahead and pull this to a close. So I want to thank every single one of you for coming out, asking some really great questions. You guys are awesome. And I appreciate the time and the attention, and I appreciate you guys supporting Neural and what we do. It's great to have you guys here, and I want to just continue building this community up. So yeah, we'll just keep doing these live streams and keep having good conversations. So as always, I'll see you in the next video.